What's up guys, my name is Witty of course, and today we're going to be talking about the best solo XP nightmare dungeons. There is a tier list on Maxroll for this, and we are going to kind of be piggybacking off of that today, just to give you guys an idea of what each of these dungeons look like, and talk about why they're the best ones. Now this is going to be a top 5 video. The top 5 order is essentially my opinion, but it is with a lot of consideration and thought put into it because I have tested all of these individually dozens of times. So, what are the top 5 solo experience farming nightmare dungeons? Well, we have Alderwood, Earthen Wound, Onyx Hold, Blind Burrows, and Ghoulron Canals. Most of these are S tier because they are extremely close to waypoints, they have very straightforward objectives, they are very quick dungeons to run, and they have very good density. Now as you can see here, I was unable to get a Ghoulron sigil, but I do have all of the other ones that we need in the top 5, as well as a couple of those honorable mentions I was talking about. So we'll be kind of previewing what these dungeons look like, walking through the objectives quickly, and talking about why I think they're the best, and my ranking of them, which may or may not coincide with max rolls. What better way to start out than with a crowd favorite, Champion's Demise, the first of our honorable mentions. I really like Champion's Demise because I guess I've run it 100 times at least and it's familiar, but also because the objective is very straightforward. All you have to do is kill all of the mobs, bring the stones to the center, and kill the boss. It's very self-explanatory, it's very easy, and because of that, it takes the first honorable mention slot as far as I'm concerned. Now this dungeon, depending on the difficulty, will end up taking you anywhere from 5 to 7 minutes to complete, and because of that, it definitely can't be S tier. It doesn't compete as far as speed goes with the other options, so just point blank, it's not fast enough. The mob type isn't that bad as long as you stay away from the goatmen and don't get crowd controlled too often. If for some reason you're unfamiliar, Champion's Demise has 3 legs on the map, 3 stones you bring back to the center, and once all 3 stones have been placed on these pedestals, you'll have 2 elites spawn. You'll kill those 2 elites, run down this hallway, kill the boss, and it's done. Next up for honorable mentions, we have Cultist Refuge, which, yes, I know, it's a slay all dungeon, not everyone likes that, but if I'm honest with you, most of these mobs are extremely easy to kill, and if you don't know already, you don't actually have to kill them all as you run through. You can wait till the end and they'll mostly teleport to you. So we'll kind of show that off here, and maybe that'll lighten up how you guys feel about it. We did find the door there, so this dungeon is very straightforward as well. Like I said, very easy mob type. Pretty solid mob density where you do find the groups, as you can see on screen now. We'll let these guys all run together, and we will just nuke them down. Well, that wasn't so bad, was it? As you saw, the last couple mobs that were stragglers over here ended up teleporting to me. They died in all the chaos, but nevertheless, very easy objectives. All you have to do for this part here is kill the bone pile. I'm lagging a bit because of the DDoS stuff going on in the maintenance, but nevertheless, essentially the biggest reason Cultist Refuge is here as an honorable mention is because while it is extremely fast, as you just saw, unfortunately the mob density just isn't quite as good as the S tier counterparts, and you'll see that very shortly. Number 5 for me has to be Ghoulron, and unfortunately I don't have a nightmare sigil, but the objectives are the same. You'll just have to pretend these mobs are 15 levels higher. And the reason Ghoulron is so good is because the map is extremely small, it's extremely dense for the size if you can't tell, and it's very fast. There's a consequence of all these things. This dungeon can probably be done in like 3 or 4 minutes, if not quicker, especially with movement skills, which I don't have. It's just not quite as good as the next 4, in my opinion. Now, the first objective is of course to slay all, but again, this is a pretty small map. It's 2 little circles, essentially, and you can have it done very quickly. The next objective is simply just to destroy a cocoon and 2 corpse piles. It's very quick, very to the point. and that's what puts it in the S tier, but it's definitely at the bottom of the S tier. And here is the little cocoon that we have to destroy. Takes no time at all. Corpse pile number 1 is down, and this is where we find a whole lot of the density in this map. Corpse pile number 2, and dungeon complete. Kind of retouch on what I was talking about just a second ago. The map is very small. This dungeon is more realistically like 3.5 minutes, maybe 3 minutes. And the main reason it's at the bottom of S tier, at least for me, is just because while it does have a lot of density, the elite numbers aren't there. There's not enough elites in this dungeon. You do kill a lot of mobs, but because they're not elites, you're not getting as much experience as you could be. Number 4 for me, unfortunately, this is where I'm going to catch the most flack. It has to be Alderwood. And while Alderwood is respectably one of the fastest Nightmare dungeons you can possibly do, I cannot stand the mob type. I don't know what it is about Diablo, but these chargers, they kill me too much. I don't like it. Now, the dungeon is very straightforward. Yeah. See what I mean? It's no secret, Alderwood is really good density-wise, it's really good elite-wise, it's an extremely fast dungeon to run, it's a pretty small map. Like I said, the only reason this really goes number 4 for me is because of these guys. These Tusk Chargers kill me way more than I'm willing to admit, and it doesn't help that Drifting Shade is paired with them. Objective number 1 though is just to slay the Alderkin. It's really not difficult. They even have skulls on the minimap to show you what you need to kill. You're going to clear elite packs in and around these Alderkin, and then we'll move on to objective 2. And the second area is where you really start to shine in Alderwood. All of this density with all of these elites really is close to being unmatched, especially considering how fast the dungeon can be run. Now, as you can see, the second objective is as simple as going straight to the boss. It really doesn't get any easier than that, and to boot with that, the boss really isn't difficult either, so it's a win-win. Unfortunately for me, my build sometimes hits like my 5-year-old Squishmallow on single target, so it really does help when these ads start getting onto the map. As I said before, I feel the need to defend myself here. Alderwood is probably number 1 if you don't mind the chargers, but I really can't stand these things, and as you guys saw, I died twice in that dungeon. I think you only saw one, but I died twice, and both times to chargers. I just really hate that mob type, and evidently they really hate me too. Number 3 for me has to be Earthen Wound, and I have nothing against Earthen Wound with the exception of it has 3 objectives, and that's just time consuming. Obviously, it's in S tier for a reason. The mob density is really good, the elite numbers are really good, but the only thing that makes this dungeon not first or second is, well, the time it takes to complete. Now, the first objective is essentially just to make it to the second objective, where we will find Animus Carriers, like in many other dungeons, and these Animus Carriers tend to be off to the sides, and I can't show you because of the lightning storm. They tend to be off to the sides on these little square platforms here. You can't really miss them. As always, we have to pick up the Animus, and we will be doing this, I believe it is 3 times. It could be 4, but I'm pretty confident in 3. Once you've collected all the Animus, of course, you will deposit it in the urn here, and we will move on to the boss, which I guess technically the third objective is the boss, but honestly, it's just something about Earthen Wound for me. I don't know. Number 2 for me has to be Onyx Hold, and a lot of it has to do with the sheer density that this map has. Now, I don't have a sigil anymore for this map at the moment because, if I'm honest, the last one that I did have, it sucked. It was brutal. I died a lot. You can see I'm close to breaking on equipment. We don't have to talk about it. Let's just move on. The density, as you can see in this room and many others very soon, is unmatched with the exception of number 1, which I guess isn't really a spoiler at this point, but we'll be there soon. Objective number 1 is, well, similar to a lot of other dungeons, just slay everything. There are quite a few elites here, but most of the density is just white mobs. Now, the second objective is, of course, to slay the languishing corpses, which, as you can see, are often surrounded by several elites. And once you've killed the last one, that'll be the dungeon. Pretty self-explanatory. It's mostly a linear map, with the exception of all these little squares of map that you have to go through. It's very straightforward, it's very easy to find everything you need to, and for the most part, that's why it places number 2 on my list. Number 1 is going to come as a surprise to essentially no one. Blind Burrows is honestly just the king of dungeons at the moment as far as Nightmare dungeons go. It's incredible XP, it's incredibly fast to run, and it's really densely packed with elites. You really can't beat all of those things in one place. As you can see, the objective is to kill the infested villagers, which you can see here. They're basically the little spider host guys with a different name. I guess the main reason Blind Burrows is so good is because there's really not much downtime. There's not a whole lot of time if you run the dungeon properly, where you're not fighting 300 spiders. Now after the first objective, you have this little transition room where I just got murdered. Now as you can see, part 2 is essentially just to get to the boss. No big deal. There is always a giant elite pack as soon as you enter the second part, but then you just have to kill this little spider guy. Anyways, that's going to conclude this video. My gear is completely destroyed after all of this. I'm still working out some kinks with this build, but that shouldn't really affect the premise of this video. I do hope you guys learned something. I hope I was able to help in some capacity. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I definitely enjoyed making it for you, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. We are about halfway to our 1,000 subscriber goal still. Thank you guys so much for that. I'll see ya. Peace.